calls from 2 hours received by our teams that okay, they wants to join the cybersecurity DevSecOps engineer without any prior, experience in IT. So that is to remove this kind of miscommunication or misunderstanding. Sorry, extremely sorry. We set up this 8 weekend long for DevOps internship program, 8 weekend long for cybersecurity internship program. So first 2 hours will be cybersecurity taken care by our beloved trainer Mr. Karthik, and after that the next 2 hours will be taken care of by Mr. Devashish for DevOps. Now throughout this course or throughout this 8 weekend, you will have a high level overview of this particular job position, job role, your day-to-day activities, what kind of tool set you need to have, what kind of day-to-day responsibility you need to fulfill. After that, once you have and the same time you will also get an idea how our trainer you know delivered the information to you by which you can understand one of those most uh, important and very hard to get kind of knowledge within very 2 hour span. So it will give you a nutshell or incubator kind of thing. Once you nurture those knowledge, then you will have much more idea and sense then which course or which certification, which uh, in training you need to pursue your future career. And all of these sessions are interactive. You can unmute yourself, ask any question, and we are happy to answer those things. Any question for any of you? Yes. Hey Selasi. Hey Shola.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm fine.
Yeah, Shola. So I think we had a discussion yesterday, and so um, Shola's situation is little bit unique. He have a long experience in IT. He is very good in AWS, uh, but he wants to directly join to cybersecurity. Then with discussion with me, we have decided he'll start with the DevOps class, then he'll move to the cybersecurity training. Now, Shola, the reason I have mentioned this thing here, our cybersecurity trainer and DevOps trainer both are present. So you can ask whatever question you have, because some of the question you have asked, which I, as a non-technical person, maybe I did not had the answer.
Well, excuse me. Right now, I don't really have anything specific right now,
Okay.
but yeah, I will defer that to when I really join the class.
Mhm. Yeah, you have registered for all of our classes, so that's fine. But the progression should be from DevOps, because DevOps in our DevOps training we try to give you the idea, the knowledge, the information about the infrastructure, about the software development lifecycle, and total operation domain. Once you have got the idea about that infrastructure, then uh, in the cybersecurity and DevSecOps class, you are going to learn. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about everybody. Then you can learn how to secure those infrastructure. It is like a home security. First, you need to build the home. Then and once you know every corner of your home, then only you can create a plan how to secure your house or home, right? It is a this is a simple example from a layman point of view, but I think Mr. Karthik or Devashish, he can guide you further in that topic. So, if you guys feel free to ask any question if you have any. And
So
le-
okay.
yeah,
So I'm still confused about the time
hmm
of the class. So when is the time? When do we start?
which class? This internship class or our job ready training class?
The internship class.
This is now. We are going to start right now.
Okay, no, okay. I'm talking about the DevOps rather.
The course you have enrolled, right?
Yes.
So you enroll for CPP program. So that is the comprehensive placement program, including the training. So your first training will be DevOps, and it will going to start in 17th uh, Jan, Monday to Friday, daily 2.5 hours from 7:30 p.m. Central Time, CST. It will
Okay.
be around 8:30 p.m. for you. But this is because we are going to start marketing by you know starting of Feb, and I will highly recommend you to join the same time in the weekend session, so you will have a high level overview of the cybersecurity that will give you at least 30% edge while we are during your interview or recruiter calls. Make sense?
Yeah, on weekend. So the same time on weekend?
Every weekend this is our free class, anyone can join, but the
Oh,
paid.
okay. This time around this, I'm talking about around this time.
Yes,
Okay.
every Saturday we do have 4 hours for our internship, or you can consider as a mini class of our main class. And our main job ready training class, it is for weekdays class, Monday to Friday. We do have morning batch, we do have evening batch. Yeah, somebody. uh yes, Constance.
Okay.
Hello, Constance, do you have any question?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
Oh, sorry, the earpiece was not working. So I have a question about the internship class. Is it only on Saturdays?
Yes.
And is this only for some cybersecurity, or is it AWS
So
included, or just for cybersecurity?
So this classes is going to go for another 4 hours. So first 2 hours was cybersecurity and DevSecOps. This is a
Mhm.
combination of 8 consecutive weekend session, because this is not a like a webinar where we are promoting our website. Not like that. It is a like a you can consider it is a mini training or mini hand workshop, by which you will get a high level overview of that particular domain. The second, after the cybersecurity, we do have another trainer by training, that is DevOps AWS 1 and Linux, and that will be led by Mr. Devashish.
Okay, and you said this is a free session, right?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
the whole 8 weekend session is free. Once that thing is ended, we'll take few, because we have a plan to start a AI, data science and AI. Then once that is ended, then again we are going to start for the new batches for our cybersecurity class.
Okay. So is there an AWS or like a cloud engineer class that is starting up soon?
The free one,
No, no, no. The paid from version.
paid for evening batch or morning batch?
No,
US.
evening, US.
17 Jan.
Okay, I'll check. Thank you.
Their course duration is 7 weeks long, Monday to Friday, daily 2.5 hours, 7:30 p.m. Central, that is 8:30 p.m. Eastern, for next 2.5 hours. And it's cover Linux, AWS Cloud, and most trendy DevOps toolset, including Git, Ansible, Terraform, Docker, Kubernetes, Azure DevOps.
Okay, so this is not going to be AWS. You said it's Azure.
So there will be AWS cloud. That is more or less the solution, AWS solution architect level of knowledge you will gain, and the same time you will have also have Azure DevOps. In that way, we are going to fulfill two objectives. You will have a architect level of knowledge and hands-on experience for in one cloud. In the same time, you can showcase that you have a multi-cloud practice and knowledge in your resume and or during your interview.
Okay,
Because
thank you.
that there is a reason we used to had GitLab instead of Azure DevOps, but from the next batch we are changing. There is a reason. There are so many students after completion of their training, they join our consulting firm. I think one or two is also present in this call. Silas is also here. So during their interview, we check what kind of question and we have a long discussion with the preferred vendor, the direct client, and based on the recruiter preference, we change our course content and modules. So I think 1 year or before we used to had Jenkins. Then we move in DSA 26 batch, we moved from Jenkins to GitLab, and we asked all our previous students to join a 7-week free session to upgrade their skill set. Now from this batch, we are again changing from GitLab to Azure DevOps because Azure DevOps is become more important during the interview in last couple of months. So we need to set up a free session for all our 44 batches students to join for 1 week freely to upgrade their skill set. So this kind of obligations and responsibility we normally have a relations with our previous students and consultant.
Okay, thank you so much.
Most welcome. Any other question or we should move to our cybersecurity session? Okay, then we can move to today's cybersecurity session. Mr. Deva, Karthik, is it possible if you can give a little, heads up what we have so far completed in last 6 or 7 session?
We have done
So
more than 8 weeks this time.
eight session, yeah.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah, just a
Just give me
high
2
level
minutes.
overview, like topic, because there are so many students who looking for that thing.
Before we could go further, in the previous session, right, we usually, the first
Your
session that what we
camera is not on, I think.
the first session, whatever we do, so it is always an intro to security. So here basically, I think, a lot of people will know about cybersecurity, but there is always a limitation for that. Right? So what do you mean from that? What exactly? They might have heard a lot of things, and what exactly comes under that? And what do you mean by red teaming, and what do you mean by blue teaming? What do you mean by attacking teams? What do you mean by defense teams? We'll talk about that. What are
Karthik,
the different
I
models?
think you have some issue, noise issue. Your mic, I cannot understand. Is it the problem with me or everyone?
Everyone.
There is a bit of echo.
The same thing.
The mic might be a little too far from you.
Yeah.
No, it's right next to me. Just one second.
Sorry. I think it should be better now.
Way better.
Yeah.
Way better.
Yeah. So it had automatically picked up the Bluetooth
Okay.
instead of taking up my actual microphone. It was picking up from that. You want me to start the recording?
Yeah, he record. I think somebody started the recording.
So the first week session is always about introduction to security, where we give, because this is a lot of people will be coming in who have no idea about security, who have a little bit idea about security. We talk about them. There's nothing, we're not talking about anything job related. We're just making them dip their toes in the security, right? So that is what happens. And from there onwards, we are going to talk about cloud security. Then we talk about DevSecOps. Then we talk about the infra and pen testing, right? And these are predominantly related to job-oriented approach, job-oriented. So meaning we are here talking about what are the roles, right? What are the roles that is there for each of this? What is there in cloud? What is DevOps as in what is an infrastructure or penetration tester? What is your job roles? What is you do on the day-to-day things are there? And what are the devices and how we are going to interact with that? That is going to be discussed out there. So this is predominantly a non-technical part we do, right? So here in this free part, what we have done is that we have taken a division with doing half, from a technical perspective. We're talking about technical stuff, but it is not any no practical part is there, right? Along with this, we have seen hands-on labs on how to set up your firewall, and this is predominantly in a Linux environment, right? And most of this, I think nowadays in the current scenario, where DevOps plays a very important role, all the developers are managing firewall one way or the other, and they might not know how to configure firewalls out there. So it may be dependent on that. So it could do, problematic for that. So we spoke about firewall. We also spoke about quite a few other stuff. I think we spoke about last week, we spoke about DNS, I think so. I don't remember, right? So quite a few other stuff that we have covered as well in this firewall. We also spoke about certifications. Which are the certifications which is very much important for your job roles, right? This is based on the research and what we are seeing out there. Whenever we are helping out our consultant get any job openings, we look at what are the certifications that are required out there. So we are working on those certifications as well. Help them what is mean from those scenarios, right? So we also seen about how to do, session management, right? Session management is that how does a website take into us, account, right? What happens when you enter your username and password in your website, and how does it manage those things? That is also taken into consideration. We also talk about how passwords can be hacked, can be used to do that, and how do we make sure to have a secure password out there, right? So because this organization nowadays it becomes very difficult to make people have a very complex password. They will always end up having an easier password. We saw how can we use salt to make it more complex, have things in a different way. So this has been the scenario. So there is been, we speak about, initially we speak about what is cybersecurity, but after that we talk about what are the different roles. Predominantly what we see is that why we have seen our practicals are more focused on DevSecOps and infrastructure and pen testing in these current scenarios. The mainly because the DevSecOps roles, they're also looking at pen testing roles. Even we are increasingly seeing someone who's looking for a DevSecOps engineer, they also want their engineers to be able to pen test as well out there. So these are the things, different scenarios that is going to be part of it. That is that in the main course, we go much more deeper. We must go deeper into scanners and things and all. We also saw about how to use, infrastructure scanners, right? Infrastructure meaning whenever there is any kind of server, how do you know that server is having any vulnerability or not? We also saw how to use Nmap out here. So Nmap plays a very important role to make you understand how do you check, right? How does an hacker know that a server is having a vulnerability or not? How does it know where to attack, right? If you see in a traditional sense, whenever there is a fort or a castle that need to be broken, they don't go directly with the front gate, mainly because that is going to be always reinforced. Probably they may be looking at any alternative, entry into that or any weak section of the walls or anything. So how do you identify what are the weak sections in a particular server? Those are the things that we discussed out there, right? And that covers up much more in detail in the main course. But those are the things that we looked into that, and from an you know from pen testing perspective as well. And we also have seen a lot of things. Whenever we're talking about pen testing, we're also have seen how to prevent that kind of an attack. Meaning it is both an attack as well as a defense. We'll see an attack and we'll see how to do an defensing for that process as well. Right? So that is how it goes in the play. Okay, so one second. So that is it for the what is happening in the previous session out there. So this is the in today's session we're going to talk about a very important attack vector, right? Any major attacks we have seen in the recent past, right? If you remember, there was there was a movie released called Dictator, and the Sony Pictures did not. It was based on certain dictators in Southeast Asia, and they did not. They wanted that movie not to be released, but they ended up releasing it. So Sony network got hacked, and they lot of their information was leaked, and a lot of websites were hacked and things and all. And one of the major attacks why attackers were able to get into that is using an SQL injection. So before doing an attack vector, we need to understand, right, what is an SQL first. Before I'm doing an attack on the SQL, understand what is an SQL first. So what is an SQL? So SQL is nothing but structured query language. This is not equivalent to NoSQL. NoSQL is different. Okay, so probably we'll see if there's enough time in the later. Probably we'll talk about it, but this is not, we are not going to cover up. In a structured query language, predominantly it is nothing but you will have rows and columns. Right? This is going to be the case. For instance, you don't need to go into MySQL also. Your Excel is also a structured query language. The problem with Excel is why it is not used mainstream is there's a limitation to
I
a
see
number
your
of.
screen.
One second. How about others? Can others see my screen?
No.
I don't know. How about now?
Perfect.
Yes. You are writing so many things and we missed everything.
Sorry. I always share my screen 90% of the time. Only when there's a Q&A session, I may not be sharing the screen, but most 90%. So if you don't see my screen, let me know. So structured query language is, something which is in rows and columns, right? For instance, we can talk about, student. student info. In a normal college environment or a school environment, you will see there will be a student ID, student name, right? And then the subject or the course selected, subject one, subject one, subject two, and so on and so forth, right? It could be address or anything. Your bank collects your information. Where is your banking information stored? It is always going to be stored in something called as a table, right? It is always going to be stored in something called as a table, and this is called as a structured query language, meaning there is a standard or a structure that it is going to be there, and there is going to be present out there. So in a typical scenario, what is going to happen is we are going to see a tool like MySQL is going to be used. Okay, MySQL is going to be used for storing. So there are a lot of other things as well. There is something called as MS SQL. Okay, and again there are quite a few other things as well. Access is also there. That is also from Microsoft, and this is also from Microsoft. Both of them. This is Microsoft SQL Access, and Oracle is there, one of the biggest players. Oracle predominantly make money from databases. All right, there are things. These are all paid versions. These are all paid versions, and MySQL is absolutely free. Okay, so in MySQL actually there are three variations. One is two variations. One is MySQL, and second term is MariaDB. They both are exactly same. There's no difference between them. So what happened was previously MySQL was developed by Sun Microsystems, right? So what happened? Sun Microsystems went under loss and it got purchased by Oracle. Oracle was their main competitor, but they ended up buying it. So what happened was after they acquired, they started, very slowly trying to reduce the impact on it because MySQL is free and predominantly even Facebook depends on MySQL for storing all the information. They don't want to have that part. So the original team left Oracle and they started in another spoke out there. So that is how it went. So both are exactly same. The commands which are running in MySQL will run and there are a lot of variations. But 95% of them are exactly the same out there. So in some cases, when you install my database, some Linux, MariaDB is the default. In some databases, MySQL is the default scenario, right? So now you may be thinking how exactly that the process is going to be there and how it's going to be implemented in real time. So in a real time scenario, this is my laptop. From there, I'm connecting to a server. And in the server, there is something called as a server-side code. And the server-side code will be something like PHP. And there will be a web server code, web server application, something like an Apache. Okay. And let's say MySQL is going to be the database that is going to. Whenever I request a request that some data or information, it will come to the server and that request is going to be handled first by the Apache. All right. Now the Apache knows which PHP code I need. There will be multiple PHP code. It knows which PHP code to be executed and is going to take the PHP code and execute. Right. If that code request and grant or insert data into the MySQL, and then that is going to be process handled out there. And then let's say if I'm retrieving any data, MySQL will send the data back to the PHP. PHP will send it back to the web server, right? So this is PHP is going to take the data, convert it to an HTML format and send it to the Apache server. Now, what I'm getting back is a pure HTML page on the browser that gets rendered, right, and displayed. Right? This is what is going to happen out there. So see here, I'm not talking something about client side like JavaScript or Angular or anything, nothing like that. Very basic application, very simple application. You don't have to think too much out here. All right. So this is predominantly the way the application code gets, intercepted and worked on. Right. Every time there is a request that is coming in, Apache is going to look at which is the code that is getting executed, and then it is going to manage this process in a particular way. Okay, so now that is there. So there are few other things we need to know. At the same time, we will also look at some basic SQL commands, very basic SQL commands because that is what makes an SQL injection attack. The payload is just like I'm manipulating the SQL commands out there. So we're going to look into that. Before we could go into that part, we also see there is something as a get request and post request. Right? So every time that you're making a request from the desktop or your browser to the server, right? Every time you're doing that, there is a request method that is going to be there. So usually the request that is being sent will have two options out here, right? Two part. One is going to be the HTTP request header, and the other thing is going to be HTTP body, right? Where the data is actually being sent out there. So predominantly what happens is that this is having information such as what is your browser version, what is the host I'm trying to connect, and a lot of information will be there. And the URL I'm going to connect is going to be there. And this is where your data is going to, for instance, any rendering username and password of things that is going to be there. For instance, let's say you're doing a search parameter, right? You're searching for a student called John in the database, right? What happens in the difference is that in the GET request, the data is always sent in the URL. Data is always sent in the URL, and in the post request, data is always sent in the body part of it. Okay, so there is a lot of limitations and things like that, but the point is that GET request is not a good idea to use when you're sending data out. It's not good because GET request is sending data in the URL, and the URL gets stored in your browser data, and any information sent will be stored in your browser information. So that is not a good idea to go about it. Okay, so always go for the post request in your scenario. So now that is that, because the main reason why I'm telling is in the practical part which I'm going to work today, I'll be working on the GET request part. Okay. The reason I'm using GET request here is that to make it things explaining much more easier. If I have to use a post request, then I have to set up some additional machine, set up a burp suite proxy in the middle and work on it. So going at that technical point is not necessary. So here the main concept for this session is to understand what is an SQL injection, right? What exactly is happening out there? That is what we want to try to. Okay. So now let's see some basic SQL commands and things like that. We will look into that part. So there are two different machines I'm going to work on today. One machine that I'm going to work on today is going to be the SQL Labs machine, which I've done. This is basically for when we come to SQL injection, we'll see how to attack and things like that. What is the scenario that is happening out there? We will look into that part. But here we are not going to see how to install MySQL and how to work with that part. Okay, so that's going to be that. So now let me start a machine, and I'm using a Ubuntu machine, and this is a Ubuntu 2022.04 LTS version. Whenever you're downloading any server, if you're trying to implement servers on your network, always look for the support time. For instance, any Ubuntu LTS version stands for long-term support. Right? This meaning this is going to get a minimum of 5 years of support, meaning if there's any security bugs or any feature issue is there, they are going to give you fixes for that, meaning updates for this server is going to be there for 5 years. Okay, anything servers which is not LTS will get only 1 year of support from the Ubuntu. So always make sure if you're using an Ubuntu server, look out for an LTS version. LTS version usually comes in once in 2 years. You'll get 22.04, meaning 2020 April month 20.04 and 22.04, that is 2022 year, April month, and now we are also adding 24 in the month of April. There's going to be one version called 2025 or 25. This will not be a long-term support. This will be only for 12 months, sometimes even less than that also, right? So it is not advisable to go with non-terms for that. Similarly, you will have for the Red Hat as well, right? Look for that. What is always before going in, always look for what is the support duration for that, right? That is very important. So this is the 22 version. Let me log in. Installing Ubuntu is very, very easy. It is not as complicated as a lot of people think, right? So first and foremost, sudo apt update. Right. So I'm going to get the latest repositories here. So meaning every time we need to, it is a good idea to update so that the latest version of the software get installed out here. Okay. So let me install sudo apt install MySQL. It is telling I'm not able to locate the packet as MySQL. And the reason is we have to give it MySQL server. There's a lot of other components available out here as well. Mainly MySQL will have client as well as server. Client is basically, it may be installed on a desktop or in laptops of the developers and things like that, where it will connect to some server. There is no MySQL here installed out there. It is just for the client purpose to interact with any MySQL server anywhere in the world. We can have that part. MySQL server is where the database is going to be created and maintained. Okay, this is where it is going to be there, and this is what we are going to install out here. Okay, it takes a couple of seconds, not much, depending on your internet speed. So give us. MySQL will run as a daemon. Okay, so meaning it is going to run as a service. In Ubuntu, by default, after installation, in Ubuntu, after you install it, service will start by default. Okay, so how do you know that service is running or not? It's very simple. Yes, that's clear. System control status, and I'm going to give MySQL is what I'm looking at. So give it is here. It is telling in the second line, you can see it is loaded and it is active and it is running on there. This is what is going to be there. For instance, if the MySQL is not running, if you want to stop MySQL, can you stop MySQL? Right. Now, if you give status, you'll see the MySQL is inactive or dead. So for us to continue, we have to start it. Sudo system control start MySQL. That's it. Okay. Now this is done, and starting MySQL is very simple. Sudo MySQL. Right. This is that. If you're in a there is a lot of other things, user managements we can give, where I can log in as a particular user and do a lot of other things and all. That is not point of this course for the training today. User management at the MySQL is not what we are going to be concerned about. So we are going to be looked at what is the point for what are the things that need to be there, right? So now there is, as I told previously, every data that is going to be created is going to be in a table. Right? That is very much true. But above the table, there's going to be something called as a database. Database is nothing but a collection of tables. Right? So that is that. So why do you need a database? The main reason probably for bifurcating or dividing the tables into groups. Right? In some cases, what happens is that your single MySQL server, right? Your single MySQL server will be housing multiple websites, right? Multi-website 1 and website 2. Let's assume that. So I don't want tables of MySQL tab website 1, right, to be accessed by tables of website 2 and vice versa for that part. So bifurcating them that into, virtually dividing them into two parts, we can do using the database. This is very important concept. Without using the database, we can't create any tables. And once creation of the database, we have to go inside that and then do make that process. There's not much issue out here. Very use for creating a database is very simple. Command is create database and the name of the database that I want to do that. This is a simple syntax, nothing more than this part. So let's create one database. We'll create a database called security. So let's open my, right? Let me first see what are the different database that is there. For that, it is going to be command is very simple. Open show databases and give semicolon. Don't forget to put semicolon. Press enter. You see, there are 4 databases that are there, and this is there by default. Okay, every time you create, this is going to be there. And see this information schema. This is a very important database for us. This is where having information about is particular database is what gives me access to any compromising any database, MySQL. When you talk about MySQL compromise, usually there is a complete compromise, right? All the data can be dumped out of it in a single go. Okay. So now let's create one database here. Simple. Create database. What I want to do, put it as security. Right? Press enter. And now if I show databases, you will see there are 5 databases, including the database security. Now I cannot create the database here. I have to get inside a particular database. Once I get inside the database, I will be able to create tables inside the database out there. So getting inside the database is quite simple. Use command and the database name, right? In our case, the database name is security. Press enter. You can see the database is changed. So now if I give show tables here, press semicolon, it will show empty set. There is no tables available out here. That is the scenario process out here. So now for us, we can create a table. First we have to tell what is the format for that. Okay, what is the format for that you want to follow?
Just a quick note.
Yeah.
If you guys have any question,
Yeah, please
unmute yourself. Ask the question, because it is an interactive session. If you don't answer asking question, we had an impression that you are understanding or you are with the flow. But don't overwhelm by the flow. We have plenty times, and we are lucky enough to have a trainer like Mr. Karthik or Mr. Devashish, and they have a truckload of patients. So and we don't judge based on your question. You join here, so we know you learn to something new. So unmute yourself, stop, ask the question. We definitely answer those thing regardless of anything you can ask. Definitely in a job, training, course, or technology related, not like some political or apolitical thing. So please, yeah, sorry, Mr. Karthik, for interruption.
No, no problem. Yeah, I think it's a good thing to implement.
Hello, sir.
Yeah,
Yes,
Hello. Yes.
yes,
yeah,
Apart
please.
please.
from using Ubuntu to configure this MySQL, is it
Hmm.
possible to use? Is there any other tool? Maybe any possible tools or other tools that are there designed to do this to take this kind of task? I want to ask.
You mean to the other operating system where I can install MySQL? So this can be installed in Ubuntu.
Maybe tools. No, we have tools like when we are doing when we are having class on DevSecOps, we have tools like GitHubs and all that we can use. But
Mhm.
here I'm just asking that apart from using Ubuntu to configure MySQL, is it
Hmm.
possible? Is there any other tools that we can use to configure MySQL?
Yeah, for in terms of Ubuntu is an operating system, right? In terms of operating system, there is no limitation. You can install Ubuntu SQL on any of the operating system of your choice. You can install it on Ubuntu, you can install it on Kali, you can install it on Windows, you can install it on Mac, right? Or you can install it in many different places. In fact, there will be MySQL installed there's something called as an SQLite, right? That is going to be installed in your Android applications as well, right? So you may be using already, you may not be knowing about that part, right? Apart from MySQL, there are other tools available out there. Something like Access can also be used on that. Okay, but the attack what we are going to discuss today is going to only work on MySQL because I'm working on the MySQL syntax. For working on Access or any other database software, then we'll have to understand what is the uh, structure of that particular software, then plan our actions accordingly for that part.
Now, I would like to add one more thing, like the most used tools to check the table, configure the table in non-CLI format, I think is PHP
Yes.
and that is like most of our web developer and app developer, that is their favorite because they are not worried about the security part. They are more worried about the development part. So PHP my admin, they it's give a graphical interface of the whole table and the database, so it is much more easier way to use. And for
Correct.
security purpose, the things Mr. Karthik mentioned.
Okay. So there's also something called as an SQL MySQL workbench. That is also there. That is very much similar to PHP MyAdmin, but this mainly works just give so what we call is an IDE, right? Interactive Development Environment. So this gives much more options rather than working on the text. Uh, I know I prefer not to use interactive environment. I prefer to use command line more often because it gives me much more, hands-on. It gives me much more control. It gives you're able to understand things better when you're using command prompt out there. Yeah,
And it,
Chika, you had a question?
yeah.
Yes. So since MySQL is prone to lots of vulnerability like the SQL injection,
Mhm.
um, and I know the structure query language is just like a table,
Correct.
why are companies not using Excel instead of SQL as database?
Yeah. So what happens is that your Excel is exactly same thing as a limitation. You know, if you go completely few years back, the Excel maximum number of rows allowed is going to be 65,000 rows. Right nowadays, I think they have gone into few million rows. That is there. But if you want to add more than that, then you have to buy a new out there. Fine, but there's again there's something called as in search speed that needs to be there. For instance, let's say your social security number is going to be there. Your entire US population information is stored in one database, right? So every time if you're going to put it in something like Excel, the search time is going to be very high because there's something in this called as indexing and other processes that are done in the background to make the search speed very high. Okay, so that is not going to happen. At the same time, the number of rows that is there for storing all the US citizen will not fit in a normal Excel, right? So that is not the situation. And one more problem, whatever we have seen in the vulnerabilities, when it comes to MySQL, similar vulnerabilities are there in other databases as well. And it is not that Excel is not prone to vulnerabilities. In fact, Excel, it is quite easy. What happened was in Excel, you can run code as well, right? You can put code inside that. And as soon as you open that Excel sheet, the code get executed. We have seen where in my team, we have put up a payload where it can actually induce a malware or run a malware on the victim machine, right? And especially in the banking sector, everyone are more prone on every daily basis. They focus more on Excel sheet. So especially when working in banking, pen testing banking applications, we see, that is there. So Excel is not a good security choice. There's also feature limitations compared to other programming, other databases, but from security perspective also it is not an ideal one. Not there. There's a limitation for that. And the main reason why MySQL gets hacked a lot more, first thing is it's used more. Okay, it is used more, and at the same time, since it is used more, the configuration part of it is done badly by developers, right? That is the problem out there. So we'll see when we see the injection attack over here, it is not the SQL part, it is the coding part actually leading to the SQL injection attack. In fact, SQL injection provides a lot of security. It will allow you to encrypt all your company, whatever the data that is going to be stored up there, right? And there are a lot of other segmentation process and how to communicate. I can securely communicate. If I'm transferring data from one database, it will make sure it is using the latest encryption process and things. In terms of security, MySQL is no slouch. It is just that we are not configuring it properly. That's the main scenario. Right. Any questions?
And one more question. So this can also run on a EC2 instance, right?
Yes, yes. See,
Debian.
you can run your MySQL on EC2 instance, right? In fact, I think I'm not sure. I don't want to give the correctly. You can also have a database as a service, right? So usually what happens is that in EC2 instance, you have to first either have an EC2 instance, whether you'll have a OS out there. That is going to be Ubuntu or some any other OS of your choice. On top of that, you're going to install MySQL, right? Then after installing MySQL, you're going to manage it, right? Now, you making sure the MySQL is the latest one, all security fixes and everything is your responsibility. Okay, this is your responsibility in here. But at the same time, AWS or any cloud service provider they will give database as a service. Okay, here you don't have to install any OS because they will take care of the OS. You don't have to install MySQL, they will take care of the MySQL. Only thing you have to do is that they will give some kind of an interactive terminal or a dashboard, and there you can connect, you can create your database and create table and make changes into that part, right? That is how it is going to be done on there. So it is your choice. If you want more control, the problem with this kind of an approach in AWS is that when we go with like a pre-configured database and everything, the control what you have is going to be less. So there is But if you're a small organization and you don't have a lot of technical people out there, this makes a much more better things out there, right? But if you're a large organization, need to have control about what exactly that is happening out there. EC2 instance, then installing on top of it makes more sense, right? So that is how it will go. So yes, it is works on your EC2 instance. There is no difference. It is just that whatever the on-prem service is, that what is the cloud? Cloud is someone else's computer. That's the simplest way of looking at it. So instead of me running my server on my company office floor, right, I will push it to an AWS instance. I don't have to worry about installing the, I have to pay the rent for the server room, electricity, AC management. I don't have to keep one dedicated admin for that particular things. All those things you don't have to worry. Everything will be taken care by AWS. So learning MySQL one place is going to be both useful in your on-prem as well as your AWS as well. So now let me create a table. Users, okay. On top of that, I'm going to give the columns that I'm going to give. First column is username. I'm going to tell what kind of a data that is going to be there. So here I'm giving varchar. It means it can be both character as well as numerical value. Okay. Then I'm going to store password out here. Okay. So if you want to understand much more deeper here, please visit W3 schools or any online. There's a lot of free tutorials for how do we configure a database. So you can see now if I give show tables, this is going to be showing a table. There's a username for that. Okay, so this is how the process works for this. So now I want to insert data into that. So how to insert into table name. If the table name is users, okay, then I'm going to just a second, insert into I think there's some issue with the syntax. One second, let me check my syntax. One second. Yeah. So I can do same thing again and again. Right. So now the data has been added into that part. So very simple now. How do I check the data? But what is the data? So for that, there's something called as a select statement. If you select star from users, it is going to display me both the information out here. So this is predominantly how it is going to work. It is as simple as creating and things and all. So whenever I want to insert this particular syntax data, this particular command is going to be used in your PHP code or any server-side scripting language for putting the data inside that. So meaning I might give Karthik and password as password are there in the web page, and that will come down here and it will be get inserted into the table out there. So that is how it is going to work. So now let's check out to the actual hacking mission. We'll come back here. Okay.
Are you sharing your screen?
Yes.
I don't see it.
What about others? Because it is showing me as sharing here. Can others see my screen?
Yeah, I can.
Yes, we can.
Okay. So
Okay, I'll
let me
log
stop.
back in.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
I see it now. Thank you.
Okay. So now for this attack vector, we are using a very particular database called security. Okay. And you will see here there is multiple tables already present in this database. All right. There's something called as email, referrer, UA, agent, and users. And the table which is of my importance for the attack vector is the users table. Okay. If I give select star from users, this is going to print out the content of the process of that. Right. Select star meaning I'm selecting all the columns to be displayed out here. For instance, if I want only one column, I can give select ID from users. It is going to print only the one column out here for me. If I want to print two columns, then I can give what is the column name? Username, right? Select ID, comma, username from users, and it is going to display me the content of this. Okay, this is where predominantly it works into play. But now it is printing every data that is present out here. And I don't want that to happen. I want, how does your search criteria work in any website? So there is something called as I can filter out here. I can do select. I'm going to select display all the fields from the table users here. But I want to put a clause. I want to put a condition on that where I'll tell where username is admin. Okay. Since this is a text, make sure put it in the quotes, semicolon. Right? You can see there's only one thing that is matching as admin, and it is going to display that process out here. And you can do other things as well. You can have more and more variations and things and all those variations can be achieved out here, right? So this is where we are going to look into that pattern. Okay. So now for the attack vector, There is, you can check out this. There's widely available. You can check out SQLi Labs. This machine should be available where you can download and practice your SQL injection. And this particular machine is only set up for pen testing your SQL injection only. There is no other vulnerability can be compromised. So let me increase the font size here. So now, so here it is asking, so here it is asking if I'm giving ID is equal to 1, okay, ID is equal to 1, it is giving me a login name and a password name. That is login is done and done. If I give 2, it is going to print Angelina and I kill you, right? So what is happening here? If you go check out the database here, select start from users, and you will see, right? You can see the first one is dumb and second one is Angelina. So what is happening here is that every time I'm putting in here, so this is a get request, okay? So they have not put up any kind of a text file and where I can enter the information and where it is executing. This is exactly like that. Instead of putting in a text box, I'm putting in the URL. Every time you paste any information in the get request, it is going in the URL itself. So you don't have to worry. There's nothing. This is a normal behavior, right? But only thing we have less interface out here for that purpose. So basically for us to understand how exactly the attack is happening, this is much more, it's even though it's a bit complicated to understand, but is much more easy way to go about it. So what is happening here? All right, you can see there is the URL part, and after and then there is an ID is equal to 2, right? How does the server know which is the URL and which is the value that I need to know? There is a question mark symbol that is there that divides the URL and the value input value I want to send. And you can see that is present in this particular section out here. Okay, so now the value is 2, ID is equal to 2. So what is happening in the background is that it is select star from users. This is the table it is dumping the data, but there is a where clause where ID is equal to 1 or 2 in our case. When the ID is equal to 2, we'll get dumb and dumb. When ID is equal to, sorry, when ID is equal to 1, we'll get dumb and dumb. For 2, you will get Angelina and Nikhil. Okay. So now this is going to work only till ID. What? Till the ID 14 it is going to work. See here, there is no 13 also. Remember that 13 also is not there. But regularly, if you go in a sequential order, it is going to work till 14. If I give 15 here, it is not going to display anything. This is what the application process is happening out. Now, you may be thinking, okay, so how do I know there is a virtual SQL injection vulnerability in here? Okay, so now what I have to do is I have to make application here, the web application behave differently. Meaning this is something called as an error-based SQL injection. Okay, if you see, whenever I'm typing here, I'm making mistakes by, wantingly I'm making mistakes out here. Why is that? For every time I'm making a mistake, there is an error. And you can see here, this particular error is unique, and this error is telling it is an SQL syntax error. When I get this kind of an error, I know this is not an error by the PHP or the Apache web server. This is a MySQL error only, because this is very important for us, right? It is why a SQL injection error is important. First of all, it will confirm that MySQL is used, right? First of all, it will confirm MySQL is used. What is one more way of knowing whether MySQL is used or not? If you remember when we did Nmap scanning, we look for that MySQL is going to run on any particular port number 3306, I think so, right? 3306, 07 or 0, it's somewhere like that. So either one of them I need to have. If I don't see this port number open, then I will try to make this application behave properly, different, right? So now my question here is, how can I make this throw an error or behave differently, right? Here there is only two options. Either if the value is present in database, I'll use it as DB, show values, username and password, right? I'm showing that. If the value is not present in DB, very simple, no show, right? It is not going to show anything. It is going to show blank. This is what is going to happen, but this is not giving me any kind of a value out here, right? So think here, we are not only thinking about breaking a pen test of SQL injection. I'm telling you should think from an breaking perspective. What are the things that could go wrong here? I'm going to have to think about that, all those scenarios out here, right? So now it may be possible that I'm going to assume, right? I'm going to assume that it is going to only take integers, right? It is not going to take anything. So if I give A, B, C, D, something like that, will it break or anything, right? Then I will check whether I'll mix A, B and numerical, will it break? Or if I give very large number, even though I know that thing is there, but I'll give a very large number, right? I will want to see if it will break or not. Will it give any kind of an error things or not? So let's look into that, right? Let's see. Let me see. Can use magnifier. Probably this will be much more easy for us to understand. So I'm going to give 15. It did not show. What I might do is that, as I told, I will try all different variations. Let me give a numeric and things for that. See, is it giving any? It is taking the one part out here, but the rest of it is getting rejected. But it did not showing any kind of an error. Okay, so I'm not going to do anything out here. Let me give ABCD. It may be an integer. Nothing is happening, right? So let me give a very large number, right? This is something, there's a limitation to number of length of characters a particular value could hold. And when it goes beyond that, it is going to throw an error. But we'll see, we'll get an error here or not. Unfortunately, even when the input value is very long, it is still not giving an error. Yeah. So now, what can I do? Now, I will think is that, okay, I've given name, characters, and I've given numbers, it is not breaking. What about special characters, right? You have so many special characters. There's an exclamatory mark, right? There is a hash mark that is might give. And similarly, when you're trying out all different variations, right? As an hacker, it is not something like when you're learning for the first time, what you see in the movies and everything, right? It is not that it is going to be happening at a single point. They spend a lot of time. And when you're doing for the first time, right, you might have to spend all the different variations. And while you are doing all the different variations, you'll stumble upon one thing. You stumble upon something called as a single quote here. And going to press enter. What is going to happen? You will see it automatically gave you an error message out here, right? It gave an error message out here. You have an error in SQL syntax. Check the manual that corresponds to your MariaDB server version is right or not, and he's giving something important, what is happening out here. So what is this and why is this error that comes into play, right? Okay, so what is the reason behind that? So for this to understand for us, we have to look at the source code for this particular part. Okay, so now let me see where is going to be there. It's going to be in www folder only. See, usually if you have done the SQL engineering normal CRUD application, this will be quite easy. So I'm going to lesson 1, that is the thing, and there is an index.php. Every time I'm putting ID is equal to 1, this particular file gets executed by the Apache server, right? And here something is happening out here. What is happening is this particular PHP code is executing this line to get the information out. For instance, what is happening here? Let's see. Okay. It's not showing. It's nothing. It will not copy. Probably have to. Since it's a very old virtual machine, it's not going to do that. But let me type it myself. Okay, this is the SQL syntax that is getting executed. So meaning if I'm giving the same statement, if I'm giving ID is equal to 1, how it is going to be there? It is going to get executed as in this particular fashion, right? If I give ID is equal to 2, this is going to be executed as that. Right? Now, if I give ID is equal to very large number, right? Very large number, if I give, what is going to happen? And the one thing that is getting executed in the background is something like this is getting executed. Even though it is going beyond one point, it is not actually breaking the SQL syntax. The syntax is not complicated or compromised out here. But when I give ID is equal to one single quote, this gives me an error and breaks the syntax, right? This gives an error and breaks the syntax. And why do you think that is? Can anyone tell me what is the reason why this causes an error? The problem here is if you've done any kind of a coding or programming perspective, you'll always see that double quotes or single quotes should always be in even number. For every open single quote or a double quote, there should be a quote closing it. When I give one single quote, you will see here there's 1, 2, and 3 single quotes, which is odd number, and this will break the syntax. And this will cause me to give an error. Okay. Best way to know if your application is vulnerable to SQL injection or not is simple. Just go and put single quote wherever that is there, and it will give a syntax error for you. Okay, this will give a syntax error for you. Now, how do I know? This is the exact scenario. If 3 is breaking the single quote, if I give one double quote, single quote 2 times, 1 and 2, then if it should not break the statement, SQL statement, right? So let's do that. Let's come back. Let's open the browser. Here, I'm going to add one more single quote and press enter. And you will see the error is gone and ID is equal to 1 is getting executed. And this is what is happening out here. And this is where the compromise has occurred. Once you will get this option, it means it is an SQL injection. Vulnerability is there, right? You may be telling Karthik what is happening. Nothing is there. There is no information or anything. Typically, if I do this, is where I'll put immediately stop my testing. I'll put up a message to the development team. There is an SQL injection, and they will predominantly most of the time will have 48 hours to fix it, right? So now you may be thinking, what is the problem here? It is only, there is only one syntax error message was displayed and nothing else happened out here, right? And this is where everything happens. The thing is that now, how do I go from here, right? How do I go from this place to getting to dumping database? First and foremost, what I want to do is that I want to add one more statement out here. One more statement out here, meaning even though when I give single quote here, I should be able to put something else, but it should not cause an error. Okay. So what we can do here is that we are going to do something called as a comment. Okay. So usually what happens whenever there is a comment starts in a particular line, the rest of the line is going to be neglected by the compiling or whatever the program that is compiling is going to neglect it, right? So now what I'm going to do is that in MySQL, the comment is very simple. There's going to be 2 dash, then there should be a mandatory space. Okay, but unfortunately your browser will remove the space out of that. To make sure that space is there, what I'm going to do, I'm going to give dash dash, then going to be space followed by a dash. Okay, so now I'm going to do dash dash, space dash, and press enter. See, now this is not causing an error. Why is that? The reason behind is that when this particular code is running, now I got odd number of single quotes, so it will give me an error. But when I comment it out, the rest of the part of the code is not going to be executed. The rest of the code is not going to be executed. So this is no longer an issue, having the extra part of that. Now the point is, where are you going to put the payload, right? The payload is this. This is where you will dump the entire database. It will take long time. You will need some automation tool for that, but it will still be able to be achievable, and I can dump the process out there, right? There's something called as an SQL map. Once you have done this, I can push up an SQL map and able to get the process out there, right? Now, let's see, how do we go about this process? Just a minute. So now what we can do is, first and foremost, here I need to know what are the different parameters in a table. Parameters will be name, field name that is going to be there, name of the table, that is field name, then how many columns are there? Right, in column names, a number of columns are there. That is required by us to go and dump a lot of things, right? So it takes time. Some amount of things that you have to do from here is going to be a bit more. Okay. So now, how do I know? Can I add other code as well? Can I push other SQL statement information in the middle here, right? So one thing you can do is, how do I check how many columns are there? How do I check how many columns are there? This is a very clever approach, right? How do I know? For instance, what they're going to do is that by default, when you look at this table, it is the first column where the sorting occurs and rest of the table is going to follow that, meaning by default, it is going to do that. Let's say if I want to sort the table based on the second column, what I have to do? Select star from users. I'm going to tell order by 1. Right now you could see the ID 1 is going to be ordered on, and the second column I want, if I give here order by 2, based on the username, the table gets ordered out, sorted in that basis of that. And now if I give 3, is going to be ordered out here on the based on the password. Now if I give 4, what is going to happen? There are only 3 columns, right? What is the process now? What happens? Now this will give an error message out. And first process, I need to know the number of columns that are present for a very specific reason out here. Okay, for me to be able to, because I need to collect other things as well for that process. So I need to know the columns here. So how do I know? I can use this process. Okay, so now here, I'm going to give here in this section, right? Order after single quote, order by 1, and this will not give me any kind of an error. But if I give order number 4, order by 4, this will give me a syntax error. So now based on this error, I can tell how many columns are there. There are actually 3 columns out there. Okay, so that is important. In MySQL, there's also possibility. There's also option for you. One second, let me close the magnifier. To combine, 2 tables. For instance, let's say show tables. If I give here, there's something called as an emails. If you go select star from emails, this is going to show that number of ID and the email ID is going to be there. Okay, so now I can give select username, password from users, union, select star from emails. Okay, this is going to show me combining. You can see both the tables are combined and it is going to print the part of them. But you may be wondering here, Karthik, you gave star for emails, but you gave very specific column numbers for users. The reason being is that when you're concatenating 2 tables and displaying it as a single, you will need the column sizes to be both of them should be even out there. Okay, both of them should be even out there. So when you give now, this will give an error telling that the column sizes are not matching out there. And this is exactly the reason I want to be able to know the number of columns. Okay, so now let's say what I'm going to do is select star from users. Then I'm going to give in a union select 1, 2, 3. If you give this randomly select statement, whatever that is there, it is going to display that. Okay, so if you see now, you got that last column 1, 2, 3, that is going to be there. What I want to display is I want to know the database name. And I want to know the version of MySQL that is running out here. Okay, but one more thing I have to know here is that if you see in the table in here, let's see if I give order by 3. There are in the field, there are 3 columns. Here only 2 is getting displayed. I need to know which 2 columns are getting displayed. Right, I know here, since I know in the background that column 2 and 3 are getting displayed, but in reality, you will not know what is there in the database. So how do you go about that? So now what we are going to do is that we are going to give here select union select 1, 2, and 3. Right, I know there are 3 columns only because of order by. Then I'm going to give 1, 2, 3. Okay, but sorry, union select 1, 2, 3. But the problem is it is not getting displayed, right? The reason is what is happening is select star from users where ID equals 1 union select 1, 2, 3. Okay. So this is getting, so second row is where my 1, 2, 3 is there. I cannot see, right? I cannot see the second row that is happening out there. So what I can do is if I make this particular statement wrong, let's say if I give 100 out here, right? Only the second row is going to display. So I can do that part, right? So in reality, here you can see 2 and 3 are displaying. So it means my second column and third column is actually being displayed out here. So if I want to put any code, further malicious code, I have to put in the second and third column out here. Okay, so now let's do that part. And one more trick here is that, you saw that made the first statement wrong because 100 is not going to be there. But in real time, that may not work because they may be using let's say they're having an ID, there are thousands of people, you don't know where it is going to be there. You cannot put that part. So very simple thing is that this particular value will never be negative. So in fact, you can put -1. This is as simple as that. This value is never going to happen. Right, and this is going to help you to disable that part. I'll just give -1. Right. So this is where your understanding of SQL syntax and commands comes into play, a very important role. The reason being is MySQL has many default user functions that are there. So if I say database here, just by putting this in the statement, it will give me the name of the database. Okay, and giving the version, it will give the version name. Giving the username, it will give me the username as well. Let me show you in this part. Select 1, database. This is a built-in function. It is not anything out there. Then again, if I give version plus semicolon here, it is going to print that particular values for that. You can see it is telling that database name is security and the version of the MySQL is that. We can also give other information also, right? We can get user information also. What is the username, right? It is also very important. Say root at localhost. It is very important for us. For if I'm doing something like a brute force attack to try to log into MySQL server, I need username for that. Otherwise, it will be difficult to crack. Once I have the username, it becomes. So now I've got three critical information just by, union select, right? 1, 2, 3. As simple as this is showing up three critical information. It gave me a database name, right? It gave me a database name. It gave me the other information as well, right? The version, it may be the user that is there. All those other things are going to be there, right? So still you might be thinking, Karthik, still there is no data that is being dumped out of here, right? It is giving me some, these are very critical information. It is not for you. You may be thinking this is a very simple information, not critical, but in reality, this is a very important information for us, right? So now let's say, can I run the statement here? Select star from table name and get the information as well, right? I can run any statement for this statement out here. So I can run select star from users, then I can print the information one by one out here. Every information can be displayed out here for my choice. Okay. So, but for that to happen, what is required? For a select statement to work, your table name is needed. Okay, your table name is needed out here. How do I get access to the table name? That is where I told for us, it is important to know the other things as well, right? Because if you remember, if I show databases, I told the information schema is a very important database that comes built in. The first, this information schema, right, has all the information about all the tables, all the columns, all the names, all the parameters, everything, right? Whenever, let's say, if I give use security for a time being, just if I want to see the parameters or attributes for a table, can give desk users. See here, it is telling what are the parameters. They're telling which are the different fields, what is the data type, what are the other parameters that is there. It is a key value, null value, default and things. Everything is specified. But this information should be stored somewhere, right? Where is that information stored, right? Like what are the columns in a particular table and all that, know this one. So that is there in the information schema. So if you click on show tables, go to information schema, click on show tables, press enter. You can see there is multiple information out here, right? And there's some column called as a table. There's again there's a table called columns where it contains information about that. And there is tables out there, right? So now if I give select, I'll not do that one. I'll do is desk tables will do. Okay. So it is going to give me all the information that is required out there. So meaning there is a table name. This particular table contains information about other tables in the database. So meaning for us, it will give the table name. Let's say if I give select star from tables where table underscore name equals users, right? That is our table out there required of them. But here it will get two because there is MySQL database also has one table called users. So there'll be two values out here. Okay, that two values. So if I show you, let me reduce the font size. So here there are two values out there, but this is not going to be of much use. This is not the right way to go. Why? Because I don't know the table. Here I have access to the MySQL, but while working in real time, I will not have access to the thing. But we got one parameter now. What? We got the database is equals to security, right? So now you could see here there's one more column called as a table schema. This is the name of the database which the table belongs to. So if I give select star from not star, if I give select table underscore name from tables where table underscore schema equals security. Right, and I give semicolon here, press enter. You could see here, now I got all the 4 tables that are there in my database. Right, I got all the tables in that. So this is the process of getting out here. So we can do the same thing for columns also. If I give select, right, let's do the desk first, right? Description of that particular. So I get column name. So select column underscore name from columns where, right, table underscore name equals users. Okay, so I'll get so now we could see there are 6 columns out here. Only 3 of them belongs. So unfortunately, what is happening is the first 3 belongs to some other table, right? So I need to put one more part of this. I'm going to put one more column out here and table underscore schema equals security. And now if you see the 3 columns that belongs to the user table is getting displayed out here. So now what we are supposed to do, right? So now I have to do select. I'm going to go to the third part, select 1, 2, let's say I will give column name, column underscore name from. If I give columns here, it is not going to work. Okay, because currently that is there in the database. What? Users. It cannot go to information schema. So for that, let's say if I want to give select star from users here, it is not going to give this process. It's telling there's no table called users. So what I have to do is that I can run the same command. I'll give here security dot users, meaning database name I'm giving first, then giving the command. So it can print that. And similarly, we have to give information underscore schema here. Dot score name. We press enter. Sorry. Columns. Right. So I got the column is ID as that part. First column name is only printing out that, right? Nothing else is being shown. I can put up the rest of the comments as where table underscore name equals users and table underscore schema equals security. Right? But the problem here is that it is going to show only one. Right? It is going to show only one value, meaning what is happening? Select column underscore name from CYLUM columns, right? Where table underscore name equals users. Right? So it is only printing, probably it is printing from this way, right? This is printing here. This ID is getting printed. But how do I print the remaining? Only one column is there. Remember this, there's only one column is there. How do I print the username and password here? How do I print the username and password here? If you see the message, if you see the syntax, it is telling limit 0, 1. It is telling limit 0, 1. What does it mean? It is making sure only one line is getting displayed. So meaning, if I give here, even though there are 6 lines here, if I give limit 0, 1, it is going to print only one line here, you could see. If I give 1, 1, it is going to print the second line, meaning what's happening here is that when this is taken as a 0th line, this taken as 1, this taken as 2, taken 3, 4th line and 5th line. So it is telling when I give limit 0, 1, it is telling print line 1, and when I give 1 here, second part is telling number of lines to follow. So if I give only 1, so it's going to print line number 1 and only one line it is going to print out. Okay.
So in that case, if you wanted to print all 5, you could say 0, 5 and it'll print all 5.
Yes, it will print all 5. Exactly. Right.
So 1, 1 will just limit you to the second line. That's it.
Yes, because the problem here we are facing is it is only printing only one line here. Correct. So I cannot print more than one line. So I need to keep on increment this one by one. So that is what we are supposed to do.
Okay.
So now I can put here in the end limit 1, 1. And if you see here, it will. Sorry, I made the syntax error. One, 1. Yeah, so now I got the second ID that is specified out there. Similarly, now if I do, as you said, if I give 1, 0, 2, it will print 2 lines from the top, right? If I give 1, 2, it will print line number 2 and 3. That is what is happening out here. So now, by doing this, each and every time I'm making changes here, I'm getting what is happening here? I'm getting the column names. So now if I want to run a statement, select star from, right? I know the table name now. I know the table name is users because I was able to get the table name from the information schema. Then again, I also know the columns that are present out here. So only 2 columns are going to be displayed. So I have to give a statement like select 1, username and password from the table name. In this case, it is going to be users, right? Now, one more thing what you can do is that since we already got the other table names as well, we'll be able to dump the data from other tables also. Okay. So you may be thinking, oh, Karthik, this is, it's too hectic, right? So this is what is, how can we do this process? This is what happens in SQL injection. It takes a lot of time for us. So the data is compromised. Okay. So for instance, if I can give here, instead of having entire table here, I will give union select 1 comma. Let's say what is the parameters in desk table. Let's see desk emails, right? By default, I'm only having access. That particular page only has access to the users. It does not have for that. So now for the emails thing, there is two parts. One is ID and email ID. So now what I can do here is I can give select one ID, comma, email underscore ID. From emails, right? So when I press enter, I got the first user information out here. That log, right? This is what is happening out there. Select star from emails, right? So it printed the first one. And if I want to print the second one, simple, go to limit 1 comma 1, and I can keep on doing this process. Okay. So this is the how you are going to dump the complete scenario out here. Right. But there is a different approach you can do here. There is something called as a group concat option in the process. What I can do, I can give, that is the syntax group underscore concat and put the ID in the flower braces. I'll do one thing. Just give me 2 minutes. Group.
Again, guys, if you have any question, feel free to ask.
Feel
Unmute
free to ask.
yourself. Because we are at the end of our today's cybersecurity session.
Yes.
The very last stage. Once it's ended, we are going to start our DevOps for next 2 hours. So just don't hesitate to ask.
Yes. So now when I do this, what did I miss here? 1 second. Let me copy this. Let me do it. Probably because it's too small. The font I cannot see. Select ID comma email underscore ID from emails. This is the syntax. Okay. Now this is also one way of troubleshooting whenever you get stuck, right? So Okay. So what it is doing is that it is taking the complete column and putting it into a single field. Yeah, see, this entire thing is working. So now I'll be able to dump the entire table in the field. Paste and copy and paste that here. See, the entire thing, entire table is dumped out there. If the table is very long, everything is going to be dumped into this particular web page, right? So similarly, since I know all the table names, I can go one by one and all the columns that is going to be done out there. So this is going to be happening. Okay. So there's one tool called SQL map. Okay. And whatever the things we did for the last 2 hours can be automated within 5 minutes. If the main thing is that, as I told, once we get a single quote and it will give an error message MySQL, then I will take my SQL map and push it out there. It will. I'm talking about even after 2 hours, I have only dumped one table, right? I have not dumped any other table out there. So I can completely dump entire thing, entire process out here. All the tables, all the data, including other databases as well, not only in the security database. It probably take about 5 to 10 minutes, not more than that, right? That is the power of automation. But the main approach for here is that how is SQL injection is actually happening out, all right? If you see here, there is no vulnerability in MySQL, right? First of all, the user database should not have been root user. Okay, that should not be there. Second, the information schema table should not have been accessible. It should not be accessed to any other database. The user has to be created in that particular pattern as well, right? And second thing that is there in the application level. So this is at the MySQL configuration level that is going to be there. And at the application level, whenever I'm giving ID is equal to 1, it should not, the website should not take anything else than number. And even there should be some kind of a mechanism on them, right? So if there is a limitation telling that it should not be below that and things and all, that should be done, carried out, both at the server level, at the browser level as well, right? See, you can see here, there is no issue with the software as a process, but it is everything to do with the part on that. So that is why you see in some cases, whenever you enter your address, you might give something like 4A, and India and something like that. If you give comma out there, it will tell special characters are not allowed, because this is a making sure special characters are not allowed. It is a security mechanism, right? Because even though there may be a vulnerability, I was able to exploit this vulnerability because the single quote, which is a special character, right? It was allowed by the application. So multiple things you can do, prevent having an input validation, making sure only numbers and characters are used. Special characters should not be allowed. And in some cases, for instance, for an address field, they will block the @ symbol. Okay. In an address field, if you put @ symbol, it will tell invalid input. But for the email part, if you put @ symbol, it will allow for that one similar, it will be there, right? But nothing else will be used. Only thing that will allow is @ and dot, right? So .com and things and all we use, and pretty much nothing else is required. So for an email ID, it will be integers. It will be characters, it will be at symbol and dot symbol, nothing more is required. We are whitelisting the characters out there. Okay. So hopefully, that is how you go and pen test, check for any SQL vulnerabilities. We see very few SQL vulnerabilities these days because a lot of people are working on those fixes and things and all. But it is when there is an SQL injection, it is a big vulnerability because as you can see, I can dump everything. And similarly, when Sony and a lot of big companies got hacked, they were able to do that part. You not only see here, not only the database it is getting hacked. A lot of your users, whenever the website is there, let's say, for instance, a Facebook page, all the users, username and password is going to be stored in some table, right? If I'm able to compromise an SQL injection, I can get any user's username and I can get access to their password, right? And I can crack any user's Facebook account or Instagram or take anything, right? Any application. So that is why database security plays a very important role. This is very important. Yeah. So that concludes SQL injection. So I know this is a bit hurried up. A lot of things was done. We do go a little bit more slower sometimes when I do, but I thought this would be a very good approach to start. Yeah. So as you can see, what people think about hacking and pen testing as is a topic is very different than what we see in the movies and things. It is much more towards a fine grain searching for needle in a haystack. That is what is that. You have to go one by one. Very methodological approach for that is required. Right? Yeah. So, but from a DevSecOps perspective, right? So what you're going to do is that the fixes are very simple, right? As a DevSecOps engineer, on the day when the application development team comes to you and tell, okay, this is the application, how it works. So when you look at an input field where search field, you will ask them, have you put any input validation out there? Are we using database MySQL database? If yes, what kind of a security measure have you put to prevent SQL injection, right? You don't have to perform this completely and do all these things. There are a lot of automation tools to help you know if there's an SQL injection. But at the design phase, if you're able to identify, tell your development teams, this is the location where there could be an SQL injection. So what have you done about that? Right. So that is it's going to help you out with that part. Right. Knowing an attacks, knowing not you can do anything, that's important. Yeah. Yeah, madam. Yes.
Yeah. So thank you, Mr. Karthik. Thanks a lot for today's session. Now, guys, there are lots of because I need 6 minutes before we jump into our DevOps classes. I need to discuss with you, and because there is certain question we are facing from our students that what is the course content for our job ready training, like, and how it will help to secure their job. Now, before I am transferring the question to you, let me give them a little bit of idea or see the training to get. This is a very common question that, hey, after doing this training, can I get a job? The question should be, if I doing this training, can I sustain on my job? Then the answer will be yes, because training will bring you or it will help you to get knowledge, a real life. Because if you check, uh, just have a quick question, one of you, like rather than Selassie or Shola, or those students have already joined, or Luis, who have already on our cybersecurity and DevOps course, they are also part of our comprehensive placement program. But any rest of you people, did you ever check our course content? If you check it very carefully, if you'll find that 90% of our course is hands-on. I'm talking about our main course. The reason behind uh, it is to get a job and sustain on the job. That is two different thing. But one thing is common. You should have a real life project experience. Right now in the interview, interviewer will not going to ask what is cybersecurity, what is DevSecOps, what is WhatsApp 10, or what is compliance, what is HIPAA. Not like that. They are going to ask how we have implemented this, how we have implemented secure your infrastructure, how we have implemented cloud security. So more on scenario basis, and to overcome that particular hindrance, we design our course that fully hands-on. Like after doing the course, you will get more or less 2 years of hands-on experience as a DevSecOps pen tester, engineer, same kind of expertise. But will that help you to get the job? Uh, yeah, it will help you to clear the interview. But again, no one's, if you've done the training, and no one's going to knock your door and hijack you for the job. For that, you need to do the proper marketing, the certification, or rest of the thing. You need to make it sure that you are doing as per the market standard. Your resume is up to the like a top 2 or 3%. It is carrying the weightage. It is not telling the hobbies and your niche, or it is explaining more about your hands-on expertise which you have covered in your previous training or previous your projects. If you done that thing correctly, definitely it will get your job. Mr. Karthik, would you like to add some more point on that? Because that is the answer normally our team provide. But if you are working in this cybersecurity domain for last 20 years, so what is your thought on that?
Yeah, so usually, so the point is that, so let's say there's a hungry man. So what you can do is that either you can give him a fish so that he can cook and eat. So, but if when you give him a fish, he will cure his hunger for that particular moment. But next day he's going to be hungry again. But if you teach him how to fish or how to catch fish, he will never be hungry because every day he can go there and catch fish and he can feed himself. That's the thing. Our course approach is exactly the same thing. Even though it's a practical approach, we talk about from a perspective, from a concept perspective. So a lot of times when you do an AWS content out there, it will not be much of a difficulty to go into Azure as well because you go understand the concept that is happening out there. And okay, fine, there may be a different approach. A similar concept in Azure will be there. I know the working of it. So I just don't have to reinvent the wheel and do a lot of approach. So we are not going to tell 1, 2, 3 steps, but we are going to explain about why that step is working. So you'll get a much more deeper impact. At the same time, so you're thinking why a particular approach is being given out there. Probably we can get away with 10 minutes of SQL injection, tell these are the things that need to be done to remediate in a SQL injection attack. But instead we talk about the attack vector that is happening out there, how we saw how the attack could occur. And then now you'll have a much more easier approach to understand why that security remediation has been given, right? Because predominantly nowadays DevSecOps is a very niche opportunity, meaning not niche. Main reason is not too many people are there. So organizations who are looking for DevSecOps engineers, they want them to come on board and start their practice of DevSecOps in their companies out there, right? They want to someone to spearhead that information. Most of the cases we are seeing out there. So at that time, understanding from a conceptual applications and things, it makes it very important. So that is what our approach is basically about, so that's the thing.
Now here is one more thing. There are some number. We do have another thing that's called CPP program. So now on that program, we train our consultant, make sure that, and we also place in different direct with our direct client in the market, or different vendor. Now I think there are certain people is also from the same program joining this course. They can reconfirm if that is true or not. Even while they are in the training, but as their profile is built in such a strong way, during the training they are getting the interviewer calls. So getting the interviewer calls is a different thing. Learning is a different thing, and this is two separate thing, and that two separate things should be done very skillfully, very carefully. You may be Einstein, there is a chance, uh, but if you sit idly in a closed room, no one's going to knock you to ask you or hire you. But again, if you are, what is the guy name who defeat Mike Tyson a few days before? Because of his marketing strategy, he got that thing, right? It's covered by Netflix. So marketing's so you're getting the interviewer call. It is somehow it is falls under a marketing strategy nowadays. Okay, so that two things is should be done very carefully. If you have any question, even if you're not in our course, in our direct training or our in a CPP program, even if you need any assistance or guidance, we are always here to help. Any question, or we should move forward? Okay, one more thing. Our cybersecurity class, DevOps, sorry, cybersecurity DevSecOps 1 class evening batch is supposed to start last Friday, but unfortunately our previous DSO 07, sorry, 06/24 is still we need to extend for another 3-4 days because some doubt clearing session and look back session. We had to reschedule the last Friday session to the next Friday, the normal batch, but the CPP batch has already started. Guys, any question? Or should we move for you can ask any question about job,
Hello, sir.
about the market. Yeah,
Hello, sir.
yeah, yeah, John.
Yeah. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
John by name. So
Mhm.
actually I just joined the class. So actually my question is that are we just starting the DevOps class?
Are you talking about today's?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, we are about to start because right now we just ended our cybersecurity 2 hours, is extended for another 15 minutes for our cybersecurity session. DevSecOps session is ended. Now we are going to start our DevOps session with Mr. Devashish.
Right. So we're actually starting from like for beginners, like those that have no knowledge about this, about the DevOps. Are we starting from scratch, sir?
Now this our free sessions is like a 8 weekend long and 8 session long. Today is going to be the 6th session because in our DevOps class we are not trying to set up a webinar. We are trying to set up a mini training. Even people who are having they're not confirmed or they don't have an idea which coursework they should choose before investing their money, efforts and time. They can join this free 8 weekend session and can have a high level overview of that particular domain. Then if after
Okay,
that, if
okay.
they find that this is like they are in the right track, they can opt out the training from us or from somewhere else or from the YouTube, wherever they like. Make
All
sense?
right.
But today is the 6th batch, and don't worry if you after I think 6th or 7th, sorry, we'll have a 2 or 3 more session. Then after 1 week or 2 weeks, again we are going to restart a new batch for that.
All right, sir. Thank you, sir. I've gotten that.
Thank you. And but most of our students who have joined our DevOps classes and then moved to our DevSecOps job ready training, 95% they are from non-IT background, and we had a very lucky enough that we can share this kind of success stories that people from non-IT background, like grocery store, Uber driver, uh, they are used to doing the Uber, hospital industry, educational industry. Then eventually they successfully land on a 6 figures job